There's a detail nobody is noticing. Everyone is talking about the rapture. But what if it is already here? What if the rapture that everyone is talking about is actually something else much deeper, and it's already taking place right now? I know it sounds hard to believe, but I promise you, it will make sense to you soon. You weren't supposed to miss this moment, but not everyone will recognize it before it's too late. And if you're still thinking you're not being affected by this, then I have some news for you. This shift won't leave anyone untouched. Whether you believe in prophecy, astrology, or nothing at all, your life is already brushing against this current. The collective energy is too strong. It doesn't ask for permission. It pulls everything into motion. And here's the twist. Those who fight it the hardest will feel it the most. This is why awareness matters. If you don't see what's unfolding, you'll get dragged by it instead of rising with it. The Feast of Trumpets has always carried mystery. But what if the trumpet wasn't a horn in the sky, but a signal vibrating inside you? Think about it. A sudden restlessness you can't explain. A call to step away from meaningless habits you once tolerated. A feeling that something inside you has been reignited, as if your soul was just shaken awake. That's the trumpet. It's not a sound you hear with your ears. It's a call you feel in your bones. Chosen ones describe it as an inner shock, a summons that refuses to let them go back to who they were. It's a hunger for purpose, for alignment, for something more real than the hollow noise of the world. And if you've been feeling that burning urge, that inner pressure to move differently, then you've already heard the trumpet. You've already been called out of the crowd. But here's the part no one is talking about. The trumpet doesn't just summon, it also warns. It marks the point of no return. Once you hear it, life will never feel the same again. Every shift in history has had its forerunners, those rare people who stand at the edge of the unknown and step forward when everyone else is still frozen. Today, that role belongs to the chosen ones. They are not here to preach from pulpits or shout from rooftops. They are here to embody the shift. Their lives, their choices, and their very presence become the proof that a new way of being is possible. When the spiritual rapture is spoken of, many imagine escape, but what if it's not escape at all? What if it's assignment? The chosen ones are not leaving the world behind. They are carrying a new map into it. They feel clarity when everyone else feels confusion. They bring calm in times of chaos. They see patterns others miss. That isn't random. It's the calling of pioneers. Every great turning in history begins with a few who can see what the many refuse to. And this is exactly what makes the chosen ones so different right now. They're not just reacting to change. They are the change. The way they handle relationships, the way they speak truth, the way they step away from empty pursuits, all of it becomes an example of a new rhythm society is being forced to learn. In that sense, their rapture is not an escape upward, but a descent inward, bringing back wisdom and balance that humanity desperately needs. This role comes with weight. Pioneers never walk an easy path. They're often misunderstood, dismissed, or even mocked. But that is the cost of holding a torch in the dark. When they are accused of being different, it's true. They are different. Different in the same way that trailblazers have always been different. And in time, the very people who resisted them will look back and realize it was the chosen ones who carried the world into its next chapter. Chosen ones don't wait for permission to lead. They live in such a way that leadership becomes undeniable. So if you've been feeling pulled out of the ordinary and pressed into a kind of responsibility you never asked for, understand this: you're not being punished. You're being positioned. History doesn't remember the comfortable, it remembers the pioneers. We're living in the moment where the separation is becoming impossible to ignore. What if the very real division that's happening right here, right now? You may have already noticed it. Friends who once felt like family suddenly feel distant. Groups that once gave you comfort now feel heavy, suffocating, almost toxic. It's as if two completely different realities are forming in the same room, and you can feel yourself being pulled toward one of them. Those who choose fear will cling to illusions. Those who choose truth will rise into clarity. And it's not just quiet differences, it's visible, shocking even. People you thought would walk with you for life may suddenly turn against you. Some will fight to stay trapped in comfort, while others are driven, almost against their own will, into a higher state of awareness. This is the separation of crowds. It's messy, it's painful, but it's also the undeniable sign that the spiritual rapture has already begun. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The equinox on September 22nd didn't announce itself with fireworks. It moved like a tectonic surrender. That moment of exact balance between light and dark was not just a calendar event, it acted like a hinge. For a brief, precise instant, the scales matched, and then one side tipped. That tip is what many are calling the equinox trigger. It wasn't a boom, it was a turn, a handover of momentum from old patterns into a new current of identity. Think of it as the planet pausing, taking a breath, and then choosing a direction. Coincidences stacked faster than usual, and decisions that used to take months suddenly resolved in a day. Some people woke up feeling their life rearranged around them. Jobs that once felt tolerable now felt unbearable. Relationships that had lasted years started showing cracks overnight. At the collective level, small things compounded and created a momentum that could no longer be ignored. This is the moment the crowd splits into two motions, those who drift back to sleep and those who accelerate into becoming someone else entirely. The equinox handed the world a new tempo. You either learn the rhythm or the rhythm leaves you behind. This isn't prophecy dressed in poetic language, it's a practical observation. The timing matters. When balance collapses, it forces selection. It doesn't choose who's worthy, it reveals who is already aligned. For some, the equinox was a merciless clarifier. Habits that once fit like comfortable clothes suddenly chafed. Old tolerances dissolved. For others, it was a lift, a sudden easing, as if a weight had been removed. Either way, the 22nd created a visible before and after on people's lives, and the separation that follows isn't subtle anymore. It shows up in job resignations, in sudden moves, in friends drifting like leaves on different currents. And the kicker? Many didn't see it coming because they were conditioned to look outward for signs. The equinox didn't appear as a headline in their life. It arrived as an internal pressure, a reordering that acted quietly but quickly. If you felt doors closing and others opening at the same time, if long-term decisions felt strangely obvious and urgent, that was the equinox doing its work. It didn't destroy. It clarified. It didn't punish. It filtered. It set a new baseline, and from that point onward, the separation became measurable in choices that used to be optional and now feel mandatory. After that turning, the old world starts to feel heavy in a way you can't laugh off. It isn't just boredom or the usual burnout, it's a structural mismatch. Picture trying to wear a suit that no longer fits because your whole body has changed. Crowds that used to feel energizing now feel like a room full of static. Conversations that were once easy now need an effort that you can't be bothered to make. There's a subtle but unmistakable repulsion. Everything small, petty, and shallow suddenly pulls like lead. This heaviness shows up in mundane ways with dramatic results. Meetings that once passed the time become intolerable. Small talk becomes abrasive. Family dynamics that relied on code or old roles break because the roles no longer match the new vibration of the person who sits at the table. People who used to be anchors now feel like weights. The chosen ones, those who answered the inner call, experience life like they are carrying two worlds at once, physically present in the old, energetically rising into the new. That split builds friction. Friction becomes heat. Heat brings change. The old world doesn't beg you to leave it. It just becomes unbearable for those who refuse to pretend. This explains the sudden exits you see everywhere. Quiet, clean breaks, abrupt relocations, jobs abandoned without obvious reason. It's not escapism. It's the body and the soul refusing to cooperate with a life that no longer matches their newly discovered frequency. And because this separation is relational as much as it is internal, the heaviness isn't solitary, it radiates out. People start to notice who's moving with them and who's not. The difference becomes the obvious reason some friendships deepen into fierce loyalty while others dissolve with hardly a goodbye. What's important to understand is that this heaviness is not a moral failure on anyone's part. It's an energetic reality. For those rising, it feels like a clearing. For those remaining, it's a shelter of familiarity. Both reactions are human. The drama comes when the two worlds still live in the same social ecosystem, workplaces, families, neighborhoods, and neither side can pretend the other's experience isn't real. That tension is the engine of transformation right now. Inside, it lies both the pain of loss and the possibility of an entirely new way of being. But here's where it gets paradoxical. As chosen ones rise into this role of pioneers, many of them feel a forceful pull away from the very crowds they are meant to influence. And this isn't because they've become too sensitive or too fragile, it's because true transformation never happens in the noise. It happens in the silence. Think about every forge in history. Metal is not shaped in the market square, it is shaped in the fire, away from distraction, in the stillness where the heat can do its work. In the same way, chosen ones are being drawn into solitude. They're stepping back from endless conversations, constant activity, and shallow entertainments, not to hide, but to harden. This solitude is not an escape from life. It is the birth chamber of a new self. Isolation is not punishment, it is preparation. And this isolation doesn't always look like going off to the mountains. It can happen in the middle of a crowded city, when someone simply loses interest in the noise around them and begins to live from a different rhythm. They may still show up to work, to family gatherings, to daily responsibilities, but they carry a private space within them, a sanctuary where they are being reforged. This is why chosen ones often seem detached or less available during times of transition. It isn't arrogance, it isn't disconnection. It's focus. They are being pulled into themselves so that when they emerge unshakable. And it is in that solitude that the rapture becomes undeniable, because they rise above the crowd while still standing among it. Those who embrace solitude now will carry strength. The crowd cannot imagine later. And the truth is, this isolation is not forever. It is seasonal. Just like the caterpillar disappears into the cocoon, the chosen ones must vanish into silence for a time. But the world knows what comes next. When they return, they will not return as the same. They will return as the very proof that transformation is real, that the rapture has already begun. Most people are still waiting for the rapture, as if it's a headline event, something they'll see on the news or hear about. But what if it has already started for the chosen ones? And the proof isn't found where you think it is, it's found in your daily life, in the things you feel, in the subtle shifts no one else can explain. Maybe this is what it was about all this time. You've probably noticed it already. When the world goes into chaos, when everyone else is spiraling in fear, you feel strangely untouchable. Not in an arrogant way, but in a way that feels almost otherworldly. Panic doesn't grip you like it used to. Fearful news doesn't rattle you the same way it rattles others. It's as if a shield has been placed around your spirit, and no matter what storm hits, you're still standing. That's not luck. That's alignment. That's the rapture already pulling you above the noise. Peace in the middle of chaos is not normal. It's the mark of those already rising. And people notice it, even if they can't explain it. They're drawn to you. They seek your presence without fully knowing why. Friends call you just to hear your voice. Strangers open up to you about things they wouldn't normally share. In their confusion, they recognize your clarity, even if they can't put it into words. That magnetic pull is not random. It's the energy of the rapture moving through you, elevating you into a place where you become a lighthouse for others, still drowning in the fog. What used to scare you now looks powerless. The things that once seemed like giants now feel like shadows on the wall. Old habits, old fears, even old people who once intimidated you, they no longer carry the same weight. You can see straight through them. That shift is not imagination, it's not denial, it's evolution. It's the spiritual rapture, stripping illusions away and revealing how powerless those things really are when you no longer feed them with your fear. Fear only controls you when you bow to it. The moment you rise, it bows to you. And maybe the strangest sign of all is this unshakable pull to rise. It feels almost physical at times, like gravity itself can't hold you down the way it used to. You wake up with a sense that something bigger is happening, that your life has already crossed into new territory. You can't go back to meaningless distractions because they taste hollow now. You can't force yourself to shrink into who you used to be because that version of you doesn't even exist anymore. This could be the proof. The prophecy is here. It's inside you. It's the invisible elevation that explains why you don't think, feel, or move like the crowd anymore. Others might be waiting for a trumpet, but you already heard it. Others might be waiting for a savior in the clouds, but you already rose. And the most shocking part? You're only at the beginning of what this rapture is about to make of you. At some point soon, you'll notice the way people look at you has changed, not because you forced it, but because something about you now sits on a different shelf of reality. People who used to breeze past you without a second glance will pause. Those who once mocked or dismissed you will start asking questions with a new tone, like they've finally realized there's something they don't understand and they want in. This shift isn't about fame or approval, it's about presence. You begin to occupy a space in other people's perception that wasn't there before simply because your internal shape has shifted and your life no longer matches the small expectations they once had for you. It's subtle at first, a longer look in the eyes, a tone of voice that carries curiosity instead of dismissal, a handshake that lingers. Then it becomes obvious. Colleagues who once overlooked your input start deferring to your opinion. Old friends who minimized you suddenly ask for your perspective. Strangers confide things in you on the street. People don't change because you want them to. They change because your presence makes them curious. And that curiosity pulls them toward you. They're sensing something that isn't words. They're sensing a steadiness, a clarity, the kind of calm that makes chaos look like noise. This is not manipulation. This is not vanity. It's the simple physics of resonance. When your life lines up with a different standard, you vibrate in a way that other people can't ignore. They begin to measure you against old categories and find the categories don't fit. That mismatch causes attention. Attention breeds questions. Questions lead to interest. And interest, when sincere, changes relationships. People who once mattered because they reinforced your old identity now flip into new roles. Backseat passengers, critics, or suddenly, supporters. The social map redraws itself around you. Respect is the mirror of your inner work. When you stop pretending, the world starts listening. You may also notice the strange social dynamic where those who were once loudest about you become quieter, and those who barely registered come forward. It's confusing because it feels arbitrary, like one day the world rewrites its script without your input. But it isn't random, it's response. The world is calibrating to a new signal, and it's choosing who to follow based on who's actually living by it. Doors open in ways that used to require years of begging. Opportunities appear because people trust the steadiness they now sense in you. You will be treated differently not because you are louder, but because you are truer. What if this prophecy was actually about the next stage of human growth, and it's unfolding right in front of us? Not a vanishing act, not a final curtain, but a natural step in the long arc of consciousness. For centuries, humanity has been wrestling with questions of meaning, identity, and truth. Now it feels as though those questions are reaching a boiling point. Something is shifting, not just in isolated seekers or mystics, but across entire groups of people. The way we see life, relationships, and even time itself is changing. The rapture might not be an ending, it might be an evolution. Look around and you'll notice it. Conversations that would have been dismissed as fringe a decade ago are now on everyone's lips. People who never cared for spirituality are suddenly searching for answers. Even skeptics feel a strange pressure in the air, as though their own routines no longer satisfy them. This is not coincidence. When enough individuals begin to elevate their awareness, society itself begins to tilt. It makes sense when you think about it. Every era of history has its leaps, fire, language, electricity, the digital age. Why would human consciousness be any different? The greatest evolution is not in our tools, but in our perception. Perhaps what we are witnessing right now is the collective nervous system of humanity rewiring itself, preparing us to live not as fractured, fearful individuals, but as beings who recognize their unity and responsibility to each other. The trumpets, the prophecies, the warnings, they might all be metaphors pointing toward this shift. But remember, this is just a spiritual take on the prophecy. We don't know for certain, but it could very well be what was meant all along. Of course, the truth is we can't fully know. We don't know if this is the rapture, the awakening, or just another wave in the ongoing sea of human change. What we do know is that it feels different. The energy is undeniable. The sense that something has already begun is too strong to ignore. Maybe this is what was meant all along, not waiting to be lifted out of earth, but realizing we were always meant to bring heaven here. And here's the beautiful part, you don't need to figure it all out at once. You don't need to label it or even believe in it for it to be real. Evolution does not ask for permission, it simply happens. If the rapture is a spiritual evolution, then every step you take in honesty, clarity, and awareness is already proof you are part of it. The best news, this isn't a story of loss or fear or leaving people behind. It's a story of becoming more alive, more awake, more present. So maybe the rapture isn't coming. Maybe it's already here, and it's less about waiting for the end, and more about realizing we've just stepped into the beginning. If you're still watching, I'd like to thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed the content and want to see more, please consider clicking the subscribe button. Your support is very appreciated. Feel free to share your experiences or thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, take care and subscribe for more insightful content.